Xerox pad. I still have my original model. And I sat there and I just started moving squares and triangles until I realized that a cube, when you bend it when you bend the sides, four sides of a cube, the four vertical sides of a cube, diagonally from corner to corner, that cube can actually turn 90 degrees to fold itself. It doesn't work with hard surfaces because there's a lot of sliding that has to happen. But once I did that and I just sat down with squares and triangles and I worked it out in about 10 minutes. I'd thought about it for 2 months before that. Right. But the actual problem solving happened while I was in a conversation with someone else and I was just doing this thing. And to me, it's probably one of the most elegant solutions I've come up with in the course of 8 years of doing Mythbusters. It's one of the most proud of. Jamie is paying me props for that. Because,
yes.
Yeah, we know when to compliment each other.
So before you talk about bringing the boys to the set, and it reminds me that while we're sitting here talking about things that might be different between us, but things we have in common, we both have twin boys.
We both have twin boys. Jamie has 7-year-old twin boys. 7-year-old?
Yeah. 7.
I've got 11-year-old twin boys.
And you were talking about the language before. You know, our goal is there are no bad words. There are words you can't say in school or to adults.
Well. Yeah, I point out it's just gross to see a kid curse, or even really honestly to say penis. There's no need for you to have to say penis to me. I'm going to have to say it to you because we're going to have a few talks, but I don't want you to say it back to me. Yeah, it's a tough one because I don't. When I first got together with my now wife, Julia curses like a sailor as well. And she had a really difficult time for the first few months with the boys, and then she was like, fuck it, adults can curse and kids can't. Get used to it.
Candace is about the same thing. You know, I think the number of times I can count on one hand the number of times I've slipped in front of the boys actually and said something I should have. They know all those words from her. For the first time, one of them said, oh shit, or something like that, and she looked up at me and I go, hey, you're not looking at me, where do you think they learned that?
I remember Riley at like 2 years old trying to nuke something. And he's like, I see him from behind your bench, and he's like, God damn it! and I went, what? And he did this, God damn it. What's the fucking problem, man? Yeah, we just...
People ask me about twins a lot, you know, that's one of the things I get, like, I constantly, and we both our sets of boys are like this, you know, oh, they look at a photo, I'm always quick to show a photo, and oh, they're so different. Didn't you say they were twins? Well, yeah, fraternal twins, identical twins, and people have a lot of trouble getting that.
I used to joke, because they're so different, this is one of my favorite jokes, where they would be like in the stroller, and one's 25% bigger than the other, and people go, oh, they're brothers, they're twins, he looks so much bigger. And I say, yeah, it's because we're feeding him more. It's a long-term experiment. And the thing is, the best part about this is people are totally humorless about baby cum. Nobody thinks it's funny until the kids can walk. And then they laugh, but when they're babies, they're like, ooh. Not necessarily funny.
Inside boys, Adam, inside boys.
Babies. There's an episode coming up this season of taking candy from a baby. Don't get me wrong, it's a lightweight story for us. So we coupled it with the shit hitting the fan. This didn't end up, we often have great plans. Like, I've learned to think like this from friends of mine who are comedy writers. Like, and you examine, if you watch comedy writers sitting around joking with each other, comedians and comedy writers, they often seem like impromptu discussions between them will lead inexorably towards a punchline. You're like, how did you guys know that? And you know, they'd say, no. Every comedian can see a joke coming from a mile away. We know what the punchline is. The trick is how you get there. So I always see the end of an episode. I know what the final experiment's going to be like. And shit hitting the fan, you know, we're talking about getting dog poop in and manufacturing fake poop based on metrics that this, stickiness, ductility. And Jamie's like, well, what about diarrhea? So I just had this image in my head. I mean, we ended up having too much story for all the things that we wanted to do. But my final image was that we would do all the things with normal poop, and then Jamie would come in with a shovel and go, I have one more thing I'd like to try. Montezuma's Revenge.
Boy, that's right.
If you can get him to say stuff like that, it's comedy gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's really evolved into the straight man. I mean, one of the great straight men. The Martin and Lewis and all of that. I was thinking about this. I don't know if it's too hard to explain, but at Woodstock, which is something else we have in common. We should talk about that, right? So Woodstock is this nerd vaudeville show. And who knows about Woodstock?
We're coming to your town soon.
San Francisco. Next shows are 16th and 17th.
And we're going to do an East Coast tour, hopefully in late October.
So it's nerd vaudeville with Will Wheaton and Paul and Storm, and then a cadre of other performers that kind of move and change. The Riff Tracks guys who were here on the MST panel, they're part of it. And we did the show in San Diego the night before Comic-Con, which was my first of them. I'm also doing San Francisco. And Jamie was doing a cameo. They're trying to figure out a cameo, right? And so what happened was Will started to say, and everybody knows Adam is going to be on the show, and Will started to say, well, now we have for you the Mythbuster, you've all been waiting for. He's the guy who holds up the show. He's the funny one. He's the one we all love. He's the guy that the show depends on, and here he is. And Jamie walks out. And he walks up to the microphone.
Well, no, he basically steps out, the audience sees him, and they go crazy.
Right. But the great thing, my point about the straight man, mastering the straight man role, and this is the part that we didn't have, right, is that Jamie walks up to the mic and goes,
but wait, he waits until,
yes, he waits until it completely settles down. The whole reaction now stops. It's a 1,000-seat room, and he goes, what? Perfection.
I came back and I was like, dude, Jamie and his wife were like, all right, good night. No, he knocks those things out of the park. So it's actually, we often have a thing where it's like, if he's interested in putting on some piece of costume, then we're putting it in the show.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Do you want to say a little something about Woodstock, or how that came about?
Woodstock is, Paul and Storm and Will and I sort of organically came up with this idea the original idea was something like a kind of a musical McSweeney's, a little bit of everything. And then because of who we know, and we all know different people from all these different zones that are all funny and interesting, we started to put together these shows, and the trick is, it's like local talent. It's not the same every time. The only consistent thing is that it's me and Paul and Storm and Will, and then we bring in other people like Len Peralta does the posters, Molly Lewis, the ukulele genius, and
Marion Callie, who is here in town and was singing in the hotel. It's fantastic singing.
Wonderful. And so for me, there's this. What goes on backstage is just as much fun as what's going on. We're in San Diego, and there's Chris Hardwick and Veronica Belmont and Will Wheaton all tweeting at the same time.
Yeah,
it's like these comprise something like 40% of Twitter's traffic, these three people. You can throw a bomb and Twitter would just go away.
So another thing that we have in common, which is actually how we met, is we met in the skeptic world, right? At the James Randi.
This job, being a Mythbuster, one of the best parts about it is you get to meet people that you admire and people that admire you, and you get to, a new friend of mine coined the term just a couple weeks ago. He says, you get to start the conversation in the middle.
Nice.
And it's absolutely true. So a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I got a call one day, and it's James Randi. He's like, James Randi. I'm like, wow! He's like, I want you to know you're one of my heroes, and I want you to come to the amazing meeting. And I was like, me? One of your heroes? Dude! I was watching Happy joke escape.
Right, anybody, people not know who Randy is? I don't know. Everybody good with that? Okay, everybody knows who Randy is? Great. The world's leading skeptic. The world's leading skeptic.
And like one of the most genuinely sweet humans I've ever met in my whole life. And I went to the amazing meeting. I walked in. We had a very tight schedule, so we flew in. We made it just in time for the dinner. And I walk in, and not only do I see Randy, Daniel Dennett, my hero, is there. And we start talking about making clocks out of wood. And I see, Hitchens is over here, and Penn and Teller, and Penn's interviewing us on stage. I was terrified about Penn interviewing us on stage.
Was that right?
Well, because I thought Penn's such an asshole. He was going to be really tough on us, but it was, I had realized that Penn is the most generous performer you could possibly ever want to interview on stage.